Hello, everybody. How you doing? This is Kelvin. I'm up here at a place my grandparents named Valhalla, up here in the Catoctin Mountains. It's about a 300-year-old log house behind me. Spent lots of nights there growing up and whatnot. My grandparents bought this place in 1964, and it's gone through a lot of changes since then, but this was my home on the weekends. I was living in Washington, D.C. I was raised down there. And on weekends, I was up here working on the farm with my uncle and my grandfather, learning a whole different way of life. And it was really neat. And I'd come up here on the weekends and I'd be working with my grandfather, my uncle, and yes, the local hillbillies. And I say hillbillies with all the fondness because this is where they grew up. Our neighbors still had an outhouse 30 feet outside the back door of their house back in those days. And I grew up with those kids working here on this farm and just spending time in the woods doing a lot of things. And back when I came up here, one of the first times I remember coming up here, there's this pond behind me now. It was smaller back then, but never forget, we went swimming in that pond when I was a kid, about 5 years old. And I got a sunburn with the blisters were like this high, bubbles up, bigger than quarters, bigger than $50. I will never forget that. I've been really spent most of my life after that being a little careful about not getting sunburned too bad. But this place was a paradise. And if you look over there, you see that willow tree right there and how big it is, and it's actually getting old. It's mature, and it's probably in some of its final years. I planted that tree. I planted that tree when I was a youngling myself. And I planted a lot of things. My Uncle Gordon turned this into a beautiful place. Not that it wasn't before, but he was into planting trees. There's trees from places all over the world he planted up here and stuff, and it's beautiful. And then years later, we didn't have beavers here because there weren't a lot of beavers in Maryland back then, but they've come back. And now, that's a beaver den on the side of the pond. For years, there were beavers there and hanging out and living there, and they've moved on as beavers do. And another day, other beavers will come here and take over and take the pond back again. It's pretty amazing. And there's 157 acres there was up here for me to roam around on when I was a kid. There's even a graveyard back here. The Buzzard family, they still come up probably and clean the graveyard out now and then for the family. People my grandfather bought the farm from. And the graveyard was amazing. And we used to go walking out to it and hiking out to it and stuff like that. It had a lot of different things in it that some things that I just will never understand in my whole life, and other things that are kind of interesting to look back on. You know, they had children in there, and the gravestones for the children back then. If the kid died before it was baptized, it didn't get named, and it was just buried in a grave with no writing on the stone. And then this guy, the people also here, they had slaves back in the day. And that family has, in here, there's the slaves were buried right in the family graveyard, which, but they were buried without any stones. This place has a history to it that's pretty amazing. It's called Old Mink Farm Road, the road it's on. And this was the old mink farm. So this farm was set up back in the day to have everything in it, because when they were raising minks, everybody that worked here had to live here, because you couldn't just commute up the mountain back in those days. So you had a farm that had dairy, plants, chickens, pigs, cows, had everything here to maintain the community that took care of the minks that were raised here to use for fur back in that day. If you look back here, you can see the log cabin and the little lake house down here by the lake. Such a precious, precious memories. So precious. And in that pond, there's bass and bluegill we used to catch and fish with. And snapping turtles. They never really bothered us. They kind of stay away from you, but they're in there. Out in the woods here, you got lots of deer. Now, back when I was a kid, there wasn't a whole lot of bear in the area, but there's plenty of bear in the area now. So the times have changed a little bit on that. It is a beautiful and amazing place. And as I look around it, and I remember all the memories, I'm looking over here, there's a flock of geese behind me. As I'm looking at all of that, and remembering how blessed I was to be able to grow up with this as a piece of my childhood. So precious. Oh. I'm just going to take a few breaths right here. I just wanted to share it with you. So many of y'all are so much a part of my life today. I wanted to share this part of my life with you. So, peace. Love you bunches. Look at those geese out there swimming across the pond. Oh my goodness. All right. I'm going to continue my walk. Much love.